Sometimes life throws us curveballs that can be really both shocking and debilitating. And of course, these curveballs are going to affect us individually. They'll affect the kids around us, they affect our spouses, family members, friends, and pretty much everybody within our circles. In fact, in my mother tongue, we have a term that we say, Gima ogoigi bada eda. In other words, life is hitting you with a curveball. And one of the most dreaded curveballs for folks living in diaspora, and I suppose maybe even folks living at home, is the problem of divorce. Now, this is a topic that really gives me no joy to talk about, but it keeps surfacing a lot in our discussions, comments, so far. So I feel compelled to at least share some of the stories that people have shared with me privately or in other forums. Things that I hope may be useful to people who are thinking about coming to diaspora or to other folks who are dealing with similar problems. In today's video, as you can tell, I will be talking about this topic while at the same time spending time with my supervisors, again, showing them how to enjoy snacking directly from nature. That is nature that is completely unmolested. And of course, when I hear discussions about divorce in America or in diaspora, the most common conversation is all about how people get child support from whichever spouse. Typically, it's child support paid for by the man to the woman. And people almost always assume that the American system really favors women. Now, I believe there's some truth to that, but that's really not the entire story. In fact, few people realize how debilitating divorce can be besides the money part. And so, a lot of what I will share today may be true not just in America, but may also be true in Kenya. I would not be surprised. And I'll be sharing experiences again from my friends and the people that have gone through this, that have shared lots of stories with me. Welcome to the village, friends. We are in the middle of Karating, an amazing village in Kisumu in Western Kenya. If this is your first time watching our content, stay with us, and I hope this is going to be worth your time enough to want to subscribe. But either way, like I say, if you're not able to subscribe today, we hope you will subscribe another day, but you'll still keep showing up as a regular viewer. We really value your support. In fact, it's your support that has kept me going this long. This YouTube thing is not something I set out to do as I'm doing it now, because it takes a lot of time. It takes quite a bit of time to shoot, collect content, put it together and present it. And as a working parent, I have a million and other things. There are many days I honestly just want to take a pause, take a break, and maybe see what happens. But when I talk to folks, people share the experience, those intense discussions really keep me going. So I thank you for whatever kind of support you're offering, whether it's subscribing or simply watching our stuff or sharing. I truly thank you. I'm particularly really touched by some specific individuals who almost always watch and comment on our videos. You are the ones that are keeping me going. I think I was almost giving up, especially at the beginning of the month, with work ramping up and kids and all that. I nearly just wanted to shut down my channel and call it quits. But anytime I think about quitting, I get these conversations and just encouragement from folks. So thank you for taking your time and for supporting us. So let's get right onto it. Now remember, I am no expert on things divorce. I have no personal experience. I am not a trained scholar in these matters, and so I'm just going to share the stories that I hear out there, and you'll be the judge. So the first thing I hear from my friends who've gone through divorce or who have personal experiences is that when a divorce happens, especially in the Kenyan context, you are not treated like family. And I'm talking about a woman who has divorced. Oftentimes, immediately people treat you as a foreigner, which can be a very new experience for folks who've never had that. In fact, it so happens that people end up taking sides, so that unfortunately, even your own family members may take sides with your spouse who sometimes really was at fault. And it can be really tough losing that. Now, personally, I've seen cases where a person close to me has experienced divorce, and because the person who is divorcing, the woman I'm talking about, was a nice person, I stay very much in touch with them because I choose not to get involved in what happens. But people lose family members with whom they've had relationships for a long time simply because they've divorced, and that process can be really tough. And then, of course, another major concern is the issue of stigma attached to divorce, to the point where some people treat divorce as something contagious. In fact, in one case, one of my friends actually told me that her husband told her to stay away from her friend who was recently divorced. It's almost like she'll also, quote unquote, learn the bad habits from her friends. There's still quite a bit of stigma attached to divorce, and it really isolates women who are going through these things. Now, that said, I've also heard of cases where a woman has been a stay-at-home mom for like 17 years plus. And these are career women who chose to stay at home to do what they needed to do. When divorce happens, the women realize they're in a very different platform because they almost have to start from scratch in terms of their careers, when the men have really risen through the ranks and have really established themselves. So I am one person who is not a very big supporter of wives staying at home if they don't have to. But I understand there are certain circumstances that forces people to really step back. Like in my case, I had to switch to work from home to be able to handle childcare. And so if you have to do that, do it, but keep in mind that it may really set you back in terms of career in future if something were to change. Now, that said, people always don't talk about the grief that comes with such things. You may go through divorce, get whatever you want in terms of money, but for a lot of folks, it's a significant loss, and there's a grieving period that comes with it. And that psychological experience of grieving a loss of that magnitude is often very invisible to people who have not gone through this. Now, that said, it also means that getting back to the dating scene can be very tough. One friend of mine actually told me about how she really became fiercely independent and self-sufficient right after divorce. But then when she started dating, that same sense of self-sufficiency and independence appeared to be turning off some folks. I'm not quite sure why, but maybe there's some folks who are just intimidated by women who are really doing well. I've never really understood it, but it does happen. And so she was telling me that in many cases she would end up with these folks who are either super needy or clingy folks. It's a problem that I just don't know how to resolve it. But yes, some of the coping mechanisms we adopt after divorce may also be problematic in the dating scene when you're coming back. Now, besides that, even after divorce, in many cases, women still have to talk to their exes, especially where children are involved. I've seen cases where people actually exchange kids at a police station or at a gas station and things like that. So if you end up with a person who is extremely toxic and you still have to talk with them because of kids, it can be really tough. This gets even worse for people who are going to do everything to make your world miserable. And of course, the financial part is obvious. Many people assume that divorces will always favor women in America. Now, to some extent, that is true. However, the reality is whoever can afford the toughest lawyer really gets to win. I know of a case of a woman who is a teacher and her ex was a pilot. Obviously, he could afford expensive lawyers, and guess who lost? She ended up losing literally everything. So in America, while yes, in many cases the law favors women, the reality is whoever has the money, whoever can afford lawyers, really will win, sometimes regardless of the gender that you're talking about. And the other interesting bit too is that it turns out that few people are excited when women move on and get to date new folks. When a man divorces and starts dating, it's perfectly considered normal. And when a woman divorces and is meeting a new person, she's almost treated like she's cheating, sort of. And one of my friends told me she always felt guilty going on dates and even sharing with her friends because their reaction was not one of support. And besides that, women who work in professions like teaching, where titles matter, can also experience a very unique problem. Like one of my friends, she used to go by Mrs. XYZ, and then after divorce, she went out for summer, came back for summer, and she had to change her name. And the kids have already known her as Mrs. So and so, and then she has to reintroduce herself by her father's name, and that's not a fun process, because for us men, we don't have to adopt anybody's name. Women sometimes feel the pressure to do that, or actually voluntarily choose. Now, if you were to ask me personally, I really don't care whether my wife adopts my name or not. But some people value it, and for me, either way, it doesn't matter. But divorce can also change that, because that might mean you're going to have to change your papers. And if you're a professional person, some of your certificates have your ex's name, and it can get a little complicated out there. In some cases, unfortunately, and I think this is to some degree tied to religion. One case of a friend who told me that her family, super religious, grew up in a setting where marriage is meant to last forever. And so her parents actually felt she took the easy way out by divorcing a guy who was incredibly abusive. So what was actually interesting is that they actually started treating her very poorly based on that, because they were blaming her for divorcing this guy. And then it turns out that her parents were still very much in touch with her ex-abusive husband, way more so than they did with her. And it was just really heartbreaking. And so sometimes the way people respond and blame women for divorce can be tough. It actually gets worse when the divorce was actually not their fault. But society, for some reason, the Kenyan-American community, for some reason, almost always blames women. And so the common theme that I hear almost every single time is that, a lot of people who have not gone through this or have not been close enough to things like this don't get it. Don't get it. And in fact, another interesting case that I was told recently was about after divorce, the list of people who are coming to now, quote unquote, talk about your ex with you really grows. They're like, oh, okay, I also saw it. He was this, he was that, and all that. Sometimes people are not in a place to talk about trauma of that nature. And so if a person does not bring it voluntarily, please stay out of it. It may not be your business. But what I hope, though, happens within the Kenyan-American community is that we are more understanding and more supportive of women who are going through this. Regardless of whose fault it was, divorce is not something that people walk into because they want to. Nobody gets into marriage hoping to get divorced. And it doesn't matter sometimes how perfect you try. You can literally do everything right in your marriage, but unfortunately, your partner may be doing things other than what makes your marriage work. And so if you have a friend who is struggling with things like this, I hope you offer more compassion. I hope you offer more understanding, and you are supportive as possible, because the Kenyan-American women who are going through these things are really having a hard time. And so to find space where they can share this is always a good thing, because people open up in ways that, for me, was shocking. The kinds of things that I've heard have just been shocking. So the one thing I've learned is just be more understanding, be more patient, and let's just be good humans in general. Well, I hope this was useful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.